Right now, I'm not in the design field anymore, but I still use a lot of the techniques that I've learned. Because many of the principles are not even that much about graphics or visuals, but they are more focused on creative problem solving, and that is really important. Design thinking is an iterative process, just like lean, agile, and spiral processes. It consists of 5 steps, and it's actually recommended to jump back and forth between steps, because at any point you can gain more new insights that influence other parts. The first block is called Empathize. You cannot come up with a solution to a problem if you don't fully understand the situation and the people that are involved with the problem. You need to know who it's about, what do they do, what do they think, and understand fully what is going on and why. Make sure never to jump to conclusions and really only stick with what you know for sure. So this might really require research into the fields, following people, observing people, learning about their ways of doing, their behavior, and learning about the environment that things are playing in. Next step is define. After your observations, you write down all your conclusions. What do we know now about the situation? Do you see any patterns? What is the problem we're trying to solve? And maybe there's even a deeper underlying problem to it. So make sure you end up with one statement that starts with how and then finish it with the problem you're trying to solve. Like, for example, how do I reach certain thing? How do we build a certain thing? Then we continue with ideation, and to me that's the favorite part. It's when we start coming up with as many ideas as possible, or even like ideas that could contribute or partially solve the problem. Beware of sticking to your first idea. Never do that. Our brain actually is hardwired to come up with solutions as fast as possible, so it will want you to kind of like hold on to certain thoughts, but be really flexible. And sometimes it means kill your darlings, as we say in design. It means throwing away an idea that you really like, just to stretch your brain and come up with more ideas after that. After my letting go, we actually make space for a much better solution. So after you've gathered a whole list of ideas, it's time to narrow down into a prototype. Before we start to develop or work out an entire plan, we want to make sure that we are on the right direction to solving the problem. The last thing you want is spend weeks or maybe even months working on something, then you bring it in front of the situation or the people and you find out that it's not solving the problem. With prototyping, we make a very easy, safe visual that we can bring in front of people. A prototype can be a miniature version of something, it can be a sketch, it can be a simplified workflow, it could be just a button somewhere to see if someone clicks it, it could be an advertisement for something that doesn't yet exist. The prototyping, it facilitates for the testing phase. This is when we gather the data from the people that we empathized with in the first place. Does this solution really solve the problem, or does it introduce any new questions? Do we need to adjust our empathy part and definition? Or do we maybe come up with different ideas now that we have some data? Testing should give you a really strong indication if you're thinking in the right direction or not. But it also, of course, leads to a lot of new information. And so with the end of the cycle, we actually begin again and we can start the cycle over. So we start improving and making the process better and better to eventually come to a really strong solution to the initial problem. If you are interested in more practical research methods for any of the steps, I have a whole bunch of them, so let me know in the comments. Now let's jump into a practical example. Let's say every year you are trying to organize a birthday party for your friends and family, but they always cancel last minute. What are your friends and family like? What do they do? Where do they live? What do they like? What do they do in their free time? And what is your party usually like? Don't ask people directly why they are not coming, because people are just too polite. No one will tell you if they don't actually like to come to your party. So collect what you can from observations. Maybe you should meet with them and join them on some of the daily activities to see how they would behave and what do they like. So what do you find? Maybe by driving there you find out that it's actually quite far. Or maybe your friends are just introverts who like to spend time rather one-on-one. Maybe your family is very active and they don't like sitting around and your birthday parties are just a little bit calm. Or maybe you find out that your family is very different from your friends. Let's write everything now down into statements. Like, these are my findings. If any new questions come up, feel free to jump back to Empathize and collect more information. If not, let's come up with some ideas. And in this case, I will go a little bit wider than usual because we haven't defined the problem really, but I'm gonna come up with a bunch of ideas that could solve any of the problems I mentioned before. For example, if it's about the distance, we can host the party closer by. Or maybe we can even rent a bus. Maybe we can have 2 separate parties, one for friends and one for family. Or what about organizing a theme party? Make it so exciting and special that everyone will have a fear of missing out. Maybe your friends and your family have something in common. For example, if they both love games, let's create a party where we're playing games. So for the prototyping, let's take the idea of an exclusive game party for our friends and our family together. Now we need to turn this into a testable prototype. Here's an example. Let's say we create an invitation for a game-themed party that states the games we are going to play, and we make it RSVP so that we actually get some replies of people who want to come. See if that works. Or maybe we host a pre-party online where we invite some friends and family to play games together and see how that works out. With this idea, we can right away see what our friends and families like to do as games, and we gain more insight about them. We can add this back to our empathy list. Maybe we learn a new problem to solve. What are the games we are gonna play at my birthday party? And we can bring it back to our define state where we start to ideate. So you can see that this turns into a very iterative cycle where the findings that we get help us improve the overall goal, and we just start getting closer and closer to something that will actually solve the problem. If you use this technique long enough, it starts to really become a second nature and you start doing it automatically. For me, it really gives a direction out of some complex problem-solving challenges as a product manager, but also to improve my overall experiences in my personal life. I'm very curious if you are familiar with the topic. Let me know in the comments if you are. Thank you for staying all the way till the end. If you could also like this video so that it gets more visibility, that would be really sweet. Thank you so much and see you soon in another video.